When you're a fan of a team, sometimes you have to understand that tough decisions are made because at the end of the day, the players are people and people are flawed no matter what. There are some people who are more flawed than others, but at the end of the day, nobody walking the face of this earth is perfect. That is the case with the team of the city in which I reside, my favorite football team, who I've taken an emotional pause from. More on that later. But first, after the intro, we'll discuss the Baltimore Ravens' real reason for releasing Justin Tucker.
I'm excited to talk more about my background.
Also worked in so many places of media, which you will find out more. Two friends who like wrestling that talk about wrestling. To now, let's start a podcast. And
Grassroots style, the way me and Brian have done it. Every opportunity is an opportunity.
Kind of makes me want to step my game up a little bit more just because the space is so oversaturated. Anyone can start a podcast.
I live in New York City, so there's, opportunity everywhere in New York. Like, everyone's doing something. You go to a bar for happy hour, the bartender has a business.
And you apply that same strategy to network. You being very intentional. Find your why. What's the reason? Then do it.
Podcasting allowed me to break out of my comfort zone, to break out of my shell.
This is 6HM Productions.
Before we get started with today's show, I just want to remind you that you can save 10% on your order with Symphony of Balloons, a luxury balloon company that also offers a 360 camera. Just simply mention you heard about them on Breaking Through Glass Ceiling. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this episode of Breaking Through Glass Ceilings with Uncomfortable Conversations. I am your host, Brian H. Waters. This show, of course, is brought to you by 6HM Production. Folks, the Baltimore Ravens released Justin Tucker this past Monday, and they cited football reasons. Now, if you've been following sports, you know, towards the end of January, about a couple weeks after the Ravens were eliminated from the playoffs, that the Baltimore Banner did a report where there were multiple people who came out and accused Justin Tucker of sexual harassment. There were many ladies who worked at massage parlors, and there was a lot of, conversations in which it was, well, they asked him to stop. They had asked him to stop going there. But then, anytime this happens, the first thing fans, especially football fans, want to do is blame the women. Then there's why didn't they speak out sooner? In 2020, me and my friends, Renee Washington, Ashley Baker, Brandon Williams, and Kelsey Nicole Nelson, we discussed sexual harassment as we were in the height. I don't really like calling it a movement, but we're going to, for the sake of this conversation, call it a Me Too movement. And one of the things that we discussed was it's never anybody's right to force somebody when to speak. And if a woman or man decides to speak, it's never anybody else's right to tell them when, why, and how they should do it. We should allow them grace on their own terms. So when this happened, the alleged abuse took place between the years of from what I remember, what I read, the stuff I read was 2014, 2015, 2016, right? Now, Justin Tucker joined the Ravens as an undrafted kicker in 2012. If you're not a Ravens fan, let me take you back. It's the 2011 AFC Championship game. The Ravens are looking to tie the game in the fourth quarter with under a minute left. On fourth down, they send out Billy Cundiff. Cundiff is set to kick, which is a they call it chip shot. It's like, okay, it's going to be sort of an automatic for a kicker, right? And then they're playing the New England Patriots, a team that had been to the Super Bowl, but they were looking to go back for the first time since 2007. Well, Billy Cundiff goes out there. If you're a Patriots fan, you're thinking, okay, Ravens are tied a game. We got to try to score, try to win this thing in overtime. If you're a Ravens fan, as myself, you're thinking, all right, he'll tie the game. We'll see what happens in overtime. Cundiff misses. Baltimore never forgave him. Well, afterwards, and Cundiff was an older kicker, the Ravens signed Justin Tucker during the offseason. As fate would have it, in week 3, the following year, it was the Ravens versus the Patriots, this time in Baltimore. The game on the line, Justin Tucker, a rookie, set to kick, and he wins the game. Not only does he do that, he would kick many field goals and, a lot of them over 60 yards. But the big one came in the AFC Divisional Championship game against the heavily favored Denver Broncos, a team that blew out the Ravens at the end of the season. And Tucker would win the game in double overtime. And when that moment, he was placed in Ravens immortality, if we're being honest. You send them to the AFC Championship, back to New England, an opportunity for revenge. Now, the Ravens would go ahead, they would blow out the Patriots, and they would win the Super Bowl. Justin Tucker's rookie year, he's a hero. Tucker, not only he do that, he won 2 games that really stand out to Ravens fans, both against the Detroit Lions, one in 2013 season, his second year, where he made a 60-plus yarder that was a record setter. Then he would do it again, I want to say it was 2021 or 22, another one against the Detroit Lions in Detroit. So he essentially does no wrong. Where do you see a kicker have endorsements? He was endorsing Royal Farms chicken. But something happened, folks. Something happened because in the 2024 season, Justin Tucker was missing. And I'm saying, okay, he's getting older. We got to remember, he's been doing this for a long time. And he would go out there, he missed, just some normal shot. The game against the Steelers, his misses was a point differential. So after the bye week, I believe he got himself together and it seemed off. And I said, it's time to move on. I've been saying this all year. I'm thinking football reasons, right? He's getting older. It's better to let somebody go a year too soon than a year too late. Well, this report comes out and I said, oh man, he's got to go. This is nasty. I don't tolerate sexual harassment, sexual abuse. And then what's so crazy about this, just a couple years ago, and I want to give a shout out to my good friend Rita Hubbard. Make sure you check her out, NFL chick, Gridiron Gals. She talked about this in the piece she wrote for the Baltimore Beatdown, where she brought up the fact that it was John Harbaugh who said the Ravens have a zero tolerance policy. When he talked about the Deshaun Watson case, and this is doing an investigation. Well, the Cleveland Browns signed him, and we all know how that story is going. But so now is the time for the Ravens to kind of, adhere to that zero tolerance policy, right? Justin Tucker has all these allegations against him. And they said they're going to let the investigation take care of itself. And I know a lot of times there's always, innocent until proven guilty. I personally believe 20 people don't tell the same lie. It's hard enough to get 2 people to stay in the same story, let alone 20. But that's just my personal belief. I personally was like, I hope the Ravens get a kicker. And guess what? For the first time in franchise history, they drafted a kicker. Now, I was watching this video by the Kid Gowie, right? Shout out to him, does great content. If you're a Ravens fan, it's a lot of fun to watch. He talked about how the Ravens been blessed with some kickers. He brought up Matt Stover. Obviously, Stover was there when the Ravens came here. He was Brown originally. They won the Super Bowl with him. Then he brought Steve Hauschka. And Hauschka, you know, he would do better away from us. But I remember Hauschka missed some kicks. And then Billy Cundiff was good, but then he missed some kicks. And it was like, we finally got Justin Tucker. And for years, Tucker was automatic. You know, there's the meme of him looking, because it was one game he missed. He missed a field goal, a winner field goal against the Saints in Baltimore. And I was like, wait, really? And then the game in Buffalo, where it was so windy. But you took that. It's like, okay, nobody's 100%. But his percentages kept dropping. He was down to like under 76% last year. But what bothers me is the Ravens saying football reasons. When I saw they released him, I said, they got him. They realized something. And it hasn't come out yet at the time of this recording. But the Ravens saw something in that report that says, you know what? It's time to disassociate ourselves from Justin Tucker. Now, we've been through this with Ray Rice. We've been through this with Terrell Suggs. You know, a lot of times there was a lot of misdemeanors, Ravens players hanging out, DUIs, you know, assault batteries, so much stuff. But when it comes to like sexual assault, that's just crazy. It's wrong. Now, Ray Rice, I was wrong. In 2014, right, when I saw the first TMZ video, and he was dragging his wife, I was like, oh, well, maybe she passed out. Maybe it's dragging her. I was wrong. I still remember working at ESPN that night, that morning, 5:30 a.m. when TMZ released that video. A good friend of mine, Nate, was sitting next to me. He said, Brian, the Ray Rice video is out. He saw it first. He said, it don't look good. I had to take back everything I said. I remember thinking like, man, if he did it, if there's no way the Ravens would keep him, no way, you know. And here's the thing, if that video doesn't come out, Ray Rice would have still played that year. There was a lot of people say, oh, he had a bad year. He was averaged under 4 yards a carry. He had a few injuries in his back. That's the part nobody talks about. But fortunately for him, he turned his life around. Him and that was his now wife, they've moved on from it. And the Ravens have welcomed him back and with open arms to the organization. I don't know what's going to happen with Justin Tucker. I don't know if he'll play football again. Now, the NFL has constantly shown that they do not care about women, as we've seen time and time again. It was Josh Brown, the kicker for the Giants. There was allegations against him and stuff, but it's very unfortunate that the Ravens will go out there and say this was a football reason decision to release Justin Tucker when just a few weeks ago, after you drafted the kicker, we was under the impression that the new kicker and Justin Tucker would compete for the position. So I think the Baltimore Ravens just need to be honest with themselves and say, look, okay, we released Justin Tucker because we do not want to associate ourselves with him with everything that's going on. Sure, it's football decisions. We know that. But it's also because of this. I do think that had these allegations not have happened, they would have signed a kicker in the offseason and made him compete for the position. I don't think they would have drafted a kicker. But when they saw the new kicker, they decided that they didn't want to let him go. I want to make sure I get his name right. Let's see, Ravens kicker. See, you type in Ravens kicker right now, it comes up Justin Tucker, Tyler Loop. So we're now in the Tyler Loop era for the Baltimore Ravens. Now he has a legacy to live up to, right? Justin Tucker on the field is in consideration for the greatest kicker to ever do it, right? You look at accuracies, you look at big kicks, big moments, clutch. Like I said, he was getting endorsements. Royal Farms. He was cool. Well, you know, so, but the Baltimore Ravens, once again, you know, John Harbaugh, talking too much. Oh, no policy. 0 times policy. I'm glad we have that. Yeah, you had that for a black man. But what about Justin Tucker? One of your greatest players that's been on a team that you've been coaching. John Harbaugh is the second longest tenured head coach, not only in the NFL, but also in the NHL, NFL, NBA, and MLB. He's the second longest to Mike Tomlin. So he's been here. But for him to say zero tolerance, and he's glad that they have that, this ain't new to him. You know? And like I said, it's very disgusting that they had all the smoke for the black man, who was absolutely wrong. You know, Deshaun Watson, somebody who, no, he doesn't just, no. You know what I mean? So we'll see. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to support this podcast by wearing a t-shirt, whether it's the one that says breaking through glass ceilings or the one that says no ceilings above success, simply go to foryourwear.com. Also, you can support some of your other favorite podcasts and content creators, including Those Wrestling Girls, Seahawk, and the Wrestling Club. And you can support some of your favorite independent wrestlers, including Jay Bougie, Trisha Dora, Chaz the Don. Shoot, all the Pure Ignorance is on there. So go on foryourwear.com, go under personalities, you'll find Brian H. Waters, and buy a t-shirt. And remember, I'll give you a shout out on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, are you in the gym every week? Are you looking to kind of keep yourself cool while you work up a nasty sweat? Well, I got the best thing for you. Cooling bands, bandanas, cooling towels, and so much more. Go to Vertical Athletics, get your favorite team in MLS or MLB, or guess what? Now they have a custom option so you can upload your own logo and you can save 10% at checkout when you enter the code Brian H. Waters. Go to verticalathletics.com, use the code Brian H. Waters to save 10% on some of your best cooling gear. But, you know, I mentioned emotions, and I mentioned how I've disconnected myself from my teams emotionally, right? And I'm glad I did, because in 2025, the Baltimore Orioles have started the season off 13-21. The Los Angeles Lakers was gentlemen swept out of the first round. And this is all coming after the Ravens lost a game they should have won against the Buffalo Bills. And in Unrivaled, the Lunar Owls lost, didn't even make it to the championship. So all the teams I rooted for lost, right? But I'm choosing to watch sports just by watching it. And it brings me to this next point. There is a fan who goes on right now, known as John Doe, who is suing the NFL for $100 million. Do y'all want to know why? Emotional distress due to Shedeur Sanders sliding in the draft. Now, part of the reasons is due to the fact that he felt like there were people out there who talked about his attitude, talked about everything else, how he carried himself, which eventually caused Shedeur to slip. And he thought Shedeur was going to be drafted sooner. He was a big fan of Colorado, a big fan of Shedeur Sanders. And because Shedeur didn't get drafted sooner, he's been emotionally distressed. So I wrote down what this fan wants, right? Because I'm like, that's interesting. And what the fan wants is, hold on, they want a formal acknowledgement from the NFL regarding emotional distress caused by their actions and statements, a retraction of slanderous statements made about Shedeur, along with an apology for harm caused to his reputation, implementation of fair practices in the drafting process to ensure talent players are recognized and given opportunities based on merit, and any additional remedies the court deems appropriate, including compensation damages. Like I said, $100,000. Now, here's the thing. I saw, what was the funny thing is I saw this on Shade Room and they said, well, shoot, make this a class action lawsuit so we all can get something. But I thought about this and I want to know what's your opinion. What are some things from your teams that's caused you emotional distress that if you could have sued, you would have? So for me, I got a few, right? One, the number one thing is Buck Showalter not putting his Zach Britton in the wild card game against the Toronto Blue Jays. That's one thing. Number two, I would have sued Kobe and Shaq for not getting along and keeping the dynasty going. Number three, I got two for John Harbaugh. I'm either going to choose not running the ball against the Chiefs as much as he should have in the 2023 AFC Championship game, or not running the ball against the Bills the way he should have in the 2024 divisional playoffs. Those are two right there. Number five, I thought about this, right? Because at first I was thinking, well, maybe it's the Orioles for not re-signing Manny Machado a lot sooner. But then I thought about it. I wanted Chris Davis. They signed Chris Davis. Chris Davis didn't do anything. And it goes to show you don't know what you want all the time. So I would say I'll sue the Baltimore Orioles now for not making big moves in the last season. And then the last thing is Vince McMahon for making Kofi Kingston lose to Brock Lesnar as fast as he did on SmackDown. So if I could sue for emotional distress, those are the things I would sue for. But I thought that was silly. But hey, if you got the capital to do it and you win $100 million, I don't think they're going to win $100 million. But shoot, if they win $10, they settle. Whatever they settle for, if they do, congratulations. But like I said, that's the reason why I am detaching myself emotionally from my teams for a whole year. Now, what could happen, right? The Los Angeles Sparks could have a good season and get to the playoffs and not get hyped. The Orioles could turn this thing around, or the Baltimore Ravens could come out and kill it. And then next thing you know, they're playing in the Super Bowl next year. But technically that'll be in 2026. So maybe the emotions will come back. We don't know. But ladies and gentlemen, that will do it for this episode of Breaking Through Glass Ceilings with Uncomfortable Conversations. Make sure you hit the subscribe button right here. Queen PR and I will be back this week because we got a lot to talk about. Some things in pop culture and stuff. So, and we went and saw Sinners. Maybe we'll talk about that, our experience. But until the next time, folks, I'm Brian H. Waters. Remember, do not let anyone place a ceiling above your success. So long, everybody. Are you a podcaster who is looking to share clips from your show in the simplest way possible? Well, I have the best solution, and that's Opus Clip. Opus Clip allows you to take the link to your show, upload it, and then they will clip off some of the best moments. And it allows you to edit it, change the captions, change the colors, and they also give you a viral score so you know which clip can potentially generate more buzz for your show. So if you're looking to do that, click the link in the bio, sign up for Opus Clip, and go viral with some of the best content from your show.